understand that there are a total of 21,500 people who are right here together in this moment. So hello to all of you. Obviously, I'm not going to spend my time even sort of scrolling through your 1,000 faces, never mind 21,500 faces. But I want you to know that whether I know you personally or not, I and we all can feel you and each other. And that was one of the major reasons for suggesting this kind of gathering in the first place, was a kind of manifestation of what sometimes is called Indra's net, or now becoming maybe Indra's network, where every node, this is an ancient image, where every node of this diamond network is a multifaceted diamond, every facet of which reflects every other node, every other diamond in the net. And so at a time like this, where we're facing enormous degrees of uncertainty and fear and stress and challenges, and we're for the most part locked down, or should be locked down, from everything that the epidemiologists and the people who understand how pandemics unfold, that we need to, in some sense, really learn how to befriend this kind of situation and take care of ourselves in ways that make maximal sense. So that's to say that we are all deeply connected, and this is a manifestation of that deep interconnectedness and a kind of profound human intelligence that the world is starving, if not dying, for more of, and all grounded in a capacity that we all as human beings are born with. And so don't have to acquire, all we have to do is dust off our capacity to access it, and that is nothing other than awareness, which is simply another synonym for mindfulness and heartfulness. And so I doubt that most of you 21,500 people would have tuned in to this unless you in some sense had at least an intuition that the formal and informal cultivation of mindfulness would be really, really valuable at a time like this. And I concur, and go around saying often that if mindfulness was like really important, you know, last year or 3 years ago, or even 5 weeks ago, because things are changing so fast, it is infinitely more important now. And I'm going to assume that you know this. Some of you may be very new to mindfulness or have really no idea what it's about, but you've come anyway. And I trust, and I invite you to trust, that wherever you are in terms of your relationship to this practice, that you invite it into your life and experiment with it and play with it, because the stakes at this moment are extraordinarily high for us as a planet. And that was true even before the COVID-19 coronavirus epidemic. We have been trending in the direction of really challenging times, because we have not been paying attention to certain kinds of ways in which human activity has been disrupting the natural balance of things on this planet. And, you know, so the pandemics have been happening for a very long time, but now we understand something about it. And so we need to really listen to the epidemiologists and the scientists who have studied this and understand it. And so this social distancing that we're engaging in, for those of you who are meditators, it's almost like an invitation to be on a meditation retreat, where we actually use this time really purposefully. But I have been saying for decades that the real meditation retreat is not at some Buddhist center or some meditation center. The real meditation retreat is life on this planet for the time that we're here to actually experience it. And so it's from before birth to at least death. And the challenge is, how are we going to be in relationship to it? And now, in this moment of crisis, where our governments are haphazardly but increasingly inviting us to stay in our own domain and not interface with other people outside of a very small number of people in our immediate family proximity. 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of that, they say, would completely eradicate the virus, but we all have to do it. So going on retreat in this way is actually a radical act of sanity and love, just as the meditation practice itself is a radical act of sanity and love and compassion for each other, because we're suspending our usual kinds of social relationships to connect with ourselves and each other and take care of each other by moving from doing and from working and from all those other things into being. But it's very disruptive as well and challenging, because there's no school, there's no work, there's no kids. So the kids are home. So all of us are challenged in one way or another. And this is not going to be some kind of, well, how do you deal with these challenges? This is going to be specifically, this is going to be much more, how do we drop in and tap into profound interior resources that we all have as human beings for learning, for growing, for healing, and for transformation in this particular moment, and for embodying the wisdom that humanity itself, the species that we are, has to move into in the next weeks, months, years, decades, if we're going to continue with human life as we know it in the coming generations. So without going into a big, sort of discourse about all of the challenges and the uncertainty and the enormous stress that we're all under, each in our own ways, let's take a few moments and simply drop into the fact that we all could be doing different things, but we made this choice all around the world in every time zone to come online and be part of this human family of intentionality and deep connectedness. And that deep connectedness starts with ourselves. So let's establish yourself, whether you've been meditating for 50, 60, 70 years, or you're brand new to the practice, seeing if you can establish yourself right now in a posture that for you embodies wakefulness and dignity, no matter what time of day or night it is. And as best you can, let your awareness embrace the entirety of your body, sitting here, standing here, lying here, whatever you're doing. And just feel the body sitting here breathing. And of course, you're also hearing my voice as you do this. But let's feature the breath sensations center stage for now in the field of our awareness. And of course, all our thoughts and anxiety and emotions and everything else will still be here. It's not like this is going to change anything, except it has the potential to change everything, because it transforms our relationship to everything that's unfolding in the world. What we can control, what we can't control, what we like, what we dislike. And part of this process is actually befriending stillness, at least in the present moment. To not have to do anything or fill up our moments, to not have to go anywhere or understand anything, but to simply allow yourself, invite yourself to be at home in your body, in this timeless present moment we call now, with the breath moving in and out of the body, moment by moment, and breath by breath. As we sit here all together around the world, breathing together, conspiring in some sense together. And those of you who are brand new to the meditation practice, and even those of us who are not brand new to it, it might help to just keep in mind that the meditation practice is not one more doing that you have to get good at. There is literally no place to go, nothing to do, and no special something that you're supposed to feel or attain. What you're feeling at this moment is extremely special, whether it's through seeing, hearing, smelling, sensing, tasting, touching, or a kind of cognitive or emotional knowing that we call thinking. But the invitation here is to simply rest in awareness with things exactly as they are. And anchoring our attention, because it usually is so labile and so agitated, anchoring it in the body, in the breath, sensations, maybe in your belly, maybe in your chest, maybe at the nostrils, or maybe just a sense of the whole breath coming in and out of the body. And metaphorically, and if not literally, riding or surfing on the full duration of each breath coming in, the full duration of each breath leaving the body, riding, if you will, on the waves of the breath, moment by moment by moment with full attention. Alone and together with over 21,000 other people right in this moment around the world, breathing together, resting in awareness together, dropping into being together. Eyes open is fine, eyes closed is fine. And again, for those of you who are fairly new to the practice, just knowing that what we're cultivating and what I'm inviting you to participate in is only the hardest work in the world for us human beings. To even string 2 moments of full awareness or mindfulness together. And so please be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself. And if your mind gets hijacked and carried away by anxiety or thinking of one kind or another, or past or the future, or anger, what you read in the newspaper or saw on TV or whatever that is, that's part of the practice. It's not like you're doing something wrong. And so you can just let it arise, let that become, center stage in the field of your awareness, because it already has carried you away from your breathing and your body. And then when you notice that, then you see you're already back. You're already back in awareness. And so you can simply rest here without pushing anything away, pursuing anything, blaming yourself, thinking you're a bad meditator. All of that is just like surface froth. And what we're doing is dropping right down into what's deepest and most beautiful in human beings, which is, in fact, this capacity for embodied wakefulness, for an open-hearted, spacious presencing that we call awareness. And it's already yours. And it's already always here. Because otherwise you wouldn't have any idea what's coming at you, what's appearing, what's arising, moment by moment. So if the mind wanders 1,000 times, Every time you notice that it's not in your body or on your breath, noticing what is on your mind. Let that register. Fear, worry, concern, grief, and just put out the welcome mat for it as best you can. And then just watch it dissolve, as it will, because like everything else, these formations in the mind are transient, they're impermanent. And then reestablishing your attention in the body, in the breath sensations. And once again, in this now present moment, we call now, resting here in awareness. For now. And now. And now. And even now. You get the idea. to certain kinds of ways in which human activity has been disrupting the natural balance of things on this planet. And, so the pandemics have been happening for a very long time. But now we understand something about it. And so we need to really listen to the epidemiologists and the scientists who have studied this and understand it. And so this social distancing that we're engaging in. Thank you. Where is your mind right in this moment? Is it actually inhabiting the body, so to speak? Experiencing the breath sensations as they rise and pass away with each in-breath and each out-breath? Or is it lost in thought, off someplace else, or caught up in the turbulence of the mind's emotions and the circumstances we find ourselves in? And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's really, really helpful to know what's going on in your own mind. Because here's where true freedom and liberation lies. Circumstances are as they are. And right now, the domain of being offers much more potential for transformation and for healing and for wisdom going forward than any kind of doing that you're doing, including worrying. We're not trying to shut off anything, including worrying or grieving, but we're simply inviting everything to be present as we rest in awareness, grounded in the body. Keep us anchored. And at the same time, maybe recognizing that your awareness is a lot bigger than you are. Or maybe you are much bigger than you think you are. And I would challenge you to see if you can find the edge or the circumference of your awareness. Or for that matter, the center of your awareness. And I think if you start to explore and practice in this way, you may discover that awareness is like space. I mean, it is boundless. And there is no center or periphery to it. Every place is the center. And the time of no time, which we call now, is simply here. And we can draw on this kind of
Jon Kabat-Zinn,
wakefulness.
Guru selbst. Guck.
We can draw on this kind of wakefulness, promote wise action in the world when it's time for acting in one way or another. And then we can let our doing come out of being if we've exercised, in some sense, the muscle of being, the muscle of awareness, the muscle of open-hearted spaciousness, the muscle of heartfulness. And we're engaged in that all together right here, right now. And I appreciate the impulse to shout out or, engage in one way or another through voicing. But for now, as best you can, please keep your microphone shut off, and then there will be a time for dialogue. Of course, in the time that we have, and with almost 22,000 people, the dialogue is going to be restricted, but the dialogue with yourself is potentially endless. And when you cultivate that mindfully, then that is, in fact, the path in a deep path, if you will, into greater clarity, greater understanding, ultimately greater embodied wisdom as we befriend our own minds, our own hearts, our own bodies, and our own connections with the world and everybody we love in the world and everybody else that we're deeply connected to, and nature itself. And it's all right here in this moment. And for now, if we can make the best use of this time by cultivating this domain of being, by cultivating access to awareness itself, and befriending it, becoming familiar with it, becoming intimate with it, then we are actually engaged in some kind of major transformation that, as I said before, the planet is actually starving for. And when it's time for action and inaction, that will come out of a place of wisdom as opposed to a place of greed, hatred, delusion, othering, ussing and theming, which is so often what happens, and especially when we get scared or threatened. So continually coming back to this moment, this breath, this sitting here, this being human. Alone, since we're all alone, and since we're all together, we're alone together. And when you cultivate mindfulness on a regular basis, we're carrying each other in our hearts 24/7. Near and far. Family, friends, and people around the world that we don't even know. And in particular, those who are least well equipped to weather these storms, to make it through these kinds of times with the fewest resources. Maybe without money, without food, without shelter. By the millions. So if you're not in that circumstance, recognizing the degree of privilege that you already have, and the fact that we can build stories around this life and who we are as much as we want, but as you can see, one little virus that's not even alive can actually completely dysregulate the entire world. So again, the invitation in this guided meditation is to begin again, over and over and over again. Every moment, every in-breath, a new beginning. And don't forget, this virus, that's what it attacks. That's what kills us, is when it gets into our respiratory tract and our lungs. So at the moment, if you can breathe, don't take it for granted. It is an unbelievable miracle that our lungs, which are almost like nothing, can actually keep this entire organism of tens of trillions, hundreds of trillions of cells, a brain that has close to 100 billion neurons and trillions of neuronal connections, constantly changing on the basis of what you engage in, how you live your life, including how much you practice dropping into being. As so much scientific evidence is beginning to suggest. This is it. And can we inhabit this domain of awareness that is so much bigger than our fear and our stories of who we are, and which can allow us to bring the full dimensionality of our humanity to every challenge that we are facing individually and as societies and collectively and on a global level. So in the remaining minutes of this sitting, of this guided meditation, once again, as if for the first time, this breath, first time you've seen this breath, this in-breath, this out-breath, this silence, this invitation to be at home in your own awareness and to be whole, to be complete, and to recognize it right here in this moment. Without turning away from anything that's going on in our lives at this particular moment. And to practice in this way for these remaining moments as if your life depended on it. And I think you wouldn't have shown up today if you didn't already in some sense know that or intuit it. And that is a trustworthy intuition. Just as our lives depend on the breath, of course, our lives depend on our heartfulness and our mindfulness. And are not losing our minds, as the title of this thing said, and our hearts in a moment when we absolutely most need to recruit the full dimensionality of our minds and hearts and make use of them for the benefit of all beings. And not just for me, myself. So to practice as if your life depended on it. And it does in more ways than you think and in more ways than you can think. Because thinking is not our only form of intelligence. And it only goes so far without awareness. So when you're ready, I would invite you to open your eyes slowly, if you care to, with awareness. I'm not going to ring any bells or anything to signal the end of the meditation practice, this particular guided meditation, which involved a lot of talking, as well as the invitation to drop underneath the words, underneath the speech, to where the words are pointing, and to actually feel your way into the present moment in your body, and with the welcome mat out for whatever arises in the mind and in the environment, and including all of that stuff that happened on the screen. And in this sense, we can continue in awareness, and there's no end to the meditation practice. That's the real meditation practice, life itself. It's not about the breath or any other object of attention. It's about the attending itself. And that's available to us virtually 24/7. And so, I've said a lot purposefully in the guided meditation. So rather than giving an extended talk before we go into Q&A, I'll just say a couple of things and then invite us to have something of a dialogue. Those of you who are on the feed that's not the Zoom feed, which is maybe 20,000 of you, I'm sorry to say that you won't be able to, get your question addressed. But on the other hand, even if you're on the Zoom feed, we're never going to address 1,000 questions. And probably every single person has 100 questions, never mind one. So there's no end to the questions. And one of the reasons I have been doing this work for so long and care about it so much and see it as a love affair with what's deepest and best in us as human beings is that when we ask questions or have an experience of deep uncertainty, right next to that question, if you start to listen deeply to your own heart and your own mind, you may find that you don't need to ask some other person about it. That all you need to do is listen a little bit more closely to your own profound wisdom, your own profound intelligences, multiple intelligences. And in that way, the learning, the growing out of the learning, the healing, which in my working definition is coming to terms with things as they are. So now we have to come to terms with things as they are with the coronavirus pandemic. Nobody likes it, but we do have to come to terms with it. And when we do, that itself is wisdom, is healing. And then when we exercise the muscle, as I was suggesting in this way, then what we're actually doing is transmuting and transforming how we are in relationship with everything. And that is the heart of this mindfulness practice. That is the heart of a universal Dharma wisdom. That everything is transformed by holding it in the light of our own open-hearted spaciousness of knowing and not knowing. So for now, as usual, but more in this pandemic, more obvious in this pandemic, learning how to rest in not knowing is really, really important. Don't know mind. Not so caught up in our opinions and our fears and the statements that we say that we believe are true, but may not be true. But to stay close to the heart, stay close to what is actually true for us. And that cultivates calmness, it cultivates clarity, it cultivates wisdom, it cultivates love, and ultimately dropping in on the present moment, cultivating awareness through formal and informal mindfulness practice, where all of life becomes the meditation practice. I see it as a radical act of love for the world, not just for me, myself, not so self-centered. In fact, dissolving a certain degree of self-centeredness and recognizing the beauty and the deep interconnectedness in Indra's net, so to speak. And if you can see even some of the faces today, Indra's network, if you will. So in the spirit of there being no beginning or no end to the meditation practice, let's engage in a certain kind of listening to whoever winds up being able to ask a question. And I'll respond as best I can. And then we'll all engage in a very, very deep inviting of listening to what is being voiced, what is being heard, what is being felt, and what is being said. And then if this works out, as Soren suggested, we're going to try to make it available on a regular daily basis, at least next week, and see if it winds up being useful enough so that people feel we should keep this going. And really, whether we can speak or we're muted or whatever, that this truly is a collective inquiry, a collective dialogue. There's no one right way to meditate. There's no one right way to cultivate mindfulness. There are an infinite number of wrong ways to do it. And so we want to be clear about the instructions and the invitation. But each one of us needs to find our own way. And I should say ways probably, because it matures, it evolves, it changes over time. And that's trustworthy. So a very, very profound place to stand when the proverbial stuff is hitting the proverbial fan and we are perhaps stressed out of our minds and worried and grieving and concerned about our parents and our children and our loved ones and everybody else and our work and our money and meaning in life and everything else. This is, again, a time to know how important it is to maintain a certain kind of interior stability, an interior equilibrium, and not lose our minds. Or if we do lose our minds, which of course we're going to do over and over again, notice how quickly we can actually capture that, oh, I'm losing my mind here, and come back. That's a major part of this practice as well. And to do it with enormous gentleness and without judging yourself harshly. This is a really important time for loving the beauty that you are, for loving your own wholeness, not in a narcissistic way, but in a way that allows you to actually share your beauty and your multiple intelligences and your heart with the world. And I love that myself, and I love that over 20,000 people have shown up for this today. And it's really not about any one of us. It's about the love that brought each one of us here. And you can ask yourself, why did I take this time to tune into this? What was that impulse? What is that impulse? And to not just tune in, but to stay if you stayed. And to really ask that question and listen very deeply for what arises rather than trying to just come up with one or two answers, but to just stay with the listening. So I'm open to hearing from folks, Soren, so I'll let you MC this piece of it.
Thank you so much, John. So below there's, actually I'm the host, so I see a slightly different slightly different screen, but there is a way of clicking participants and then of raising your hand. You can click raise my hand if you have a question. And then John Bashu, who's working with us, will pick you. Know that you will be your image will be projected on the screen and on the web. So if you don't want that, don't raise your hand. But please raise your hand and we'll pick one of you and bring you to the forefront, and then you can please ask your question. So let's see. John, do you have a person there that you want to? Oh, there she is. Let me just take a second to unmute. You're currently muted. So let me just say, what is your name? Oh, Laura, right? Let's see. So Laura, you can now unmute yourself if you want.
That's Heidi.
There we go. Or, Heidi, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you anymore. Oh, you're still muted. Let's see. There you go. Try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, if you can speak up as loud as you can, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Heidi from Leicester. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to everybody and for... I'm an educator, educating from home at the moment. I just wondered if you felt this was an opportunity for education to embrace mindfulness for our young people, and is there a way that we could all work together to push this forward globally? Oh, I can't hear you.
Asking it, and I heard your child in the background. So many of us now have children at home, and because the schools are closed. So as you probably remember from your own childhood, we learn best about what's really true by watching how the big people are rather than what they say. So the more your kids see you actually maintaining some degree of equanimity and calmness, the more they will feel that. And it transmits, it transfers. The more they see you meditating in the morning or whenever, in a sitting position or lying on the floor in the living room or whatever, you can turn this into a game. And kids would love to lie on the floor next to you and meditate. And you can, in some sense, just turn it into a game and play meditation with them. Don't try to force them to become good meditators. And don't try to force yourself to become a good meditator, because that's a kind of deranged idea that, you know, if you can pay attention and you are a human being who is capable of awareness, it's good enough. So the important thing is to learn how to inhabit that space rather than to improve on yourself, which has nothing to do with mindfulness. And that is the education par excellence for all of us, because what the kids will need to learn to function in this new world, we're not even sure what that would be, but what they are going to need to learn is how to love themselves and to see the beauty in others and be able to connect in a deep way with them without getting lost in emotional reactivity. And they can learn that directly from how you are, not what you say. Thank you, Heidi. Much appreciated. Somebody else have a question? Hi there.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much, John, for this meditation and taking your time to connect all of us. I really felt this heart connection with everyone. It's been very special. My question is, I'm a psychologist and I'm working with a lot of people through telehealth and a lot of people who are on the front lines, nursing, and just what might you say to some of these people that are working on the front lines? Just a guidance, a short practice, something that we can offer to help people to embrace mindfulness and to be mindful and present in these moments where there is so much stress and anxiety, being in close contact with patients who do have COVID-19. And so that is just kind of, for me, as well as how can I transmit that to my clients. Thank you.
Well, first of all, a deep bow and a shout out to all of the folks who are on the front lines, and it's doctors and nurses and all sorts of people to back up the doctors and the nurses. And a lot of the concern, of course, is that, you know, everybody has children. And so the doctors and the nurses in there suffering, as we read in the paper every day, from not having enough personal protective equipment. So the levels of anxiety and fear and uncertainty are enormous. And the first most important thing is to not suggest that there's some kind of dime store way in which all of a sudden, if you were mindful, quote unquote, then you'd be much better at handling all of this. This is a time of absolute, you know, sort of terror, uncertainty, enormous stress. So it's possible to actually embrace that in awareness, moment by moment by moment, whether you're in the operating room, whether you're, you know, in, you know, whatever it is that you're doing with patients, to actually be a kind of constellation of clarity and calmness and confidence in the face of people whose minds are really, for very understandable reasons, agitated or worse. And so this is a kind of practice, and it's something which you can exercise the muscle as long as you're going to be doing whatever it is you're doing. And that's for all support people, whatever it is that they're doing, including police, firefighters, food delivery people, people who are caring for people, you know, and at a distance and in some sense risking their own health and well-being perhaps, or at least thinking they are, and the uncertainty of it all, that the more you can be embodied in the present moment, the more you will not lose your mind when that's going to harm you as well as the people that you're potentially working with. And as I said, there's no one right way to do it. So it's not like we're giving them some little dime store catechism to make everything better, but to just say, listen, if you just touch base with the breath sensations in the body from time to time, never mind moment by moment, and remember, this too will pass. This too is impermanent. What you're thinking, what you're fearing is not necessarily going to happen. Stay in the not knowing, stay in your truth, stay in your integrity, and do what you need to do with as calm and as equanimous a mind as you can. And that is shown by science to actually, with people who are under extreme high levels of chronic stress, actually people who have that kind of capacity to respond as opposed to react in stressful situations moment by moment by moment, they actually live longer. There's something about the biology that actually, whether it's telomeres and telomerase or other dimensions of, you know, epigenetics and so forth, all the evidence is suggesting that this simple practice that seems like nothing, when the proverbial stuff is hitting the proverbial fan, that's when it's the most important, and it changes your brain, it changes your body, it changes everything. But it needs to be done in a way that's actually the embodiment of wakefulness and loving kindness. And that's, again, a muscle you can exercise. Thank you, Jennifer, for that question.
Bob Linscott, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, John.
Where are you? Nice.
Mine is similar to Jennifer's question, but more for the folks that are at home. And I know nationally we're all getting different guidance, similar guidance, but yet different guidance from our national and federal leaders.
Where are you located?
I'm in your old home stomping ground in Boston, in the Boston area.
Great.
And I just have to say too, I just finished wrapping up the 8-week cycle, teaching the 8-week cycle of MBSR, and those folks felt like so blessed to have landed in MBSR and just wrapping up right at this time was.
Explain MBSR in case people don't know what you mean.
Sure, it's the mindfulness-based stress reduction that Jon developed at UMass Medical. You know, we just did a very simple exercise at the beginning of just this past week when all of this world was just falling apart left and right. We just had people chat in what they were feeling at the very beginning. You know, what was the one word, and they sent it through chat how they were responding. And then we went into the practice and just did some sitting with focused attention. And then after a few minutes of that, they chatted where they were, and it was night and day. People felt grounded and centered because the practice brings us back into this moment, as you were saying. And I felt like saying, okay, we're done here. You just did it. And to see that huge transformation in such a short amount of time, I feel like, Jon, this is the missing link that is what the instructions that we're getting at a national level is out there. It's like stay in place, shelter in place, and wash your hands, and wash your hands, wash your hands. We need you up there on those stages to give people, there needs to be something in between. There's all this time for people to be in place. And I wish we could get this practice out to people, to more people. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for saying that, for making those observations. And it warms my heart to hear that you're teaching MBSR and that you're seeing that kind of thing, because that kind of experience really brings the practice to life in ways that those of us who have witnessed this, I never get used to it, because it's the practice that's doing all the work, not the fact that I happen to be teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction or anything else. It's like, it's the practice itself that does the healing, that does the transforming, as long as you're willing to engage in it. And part of that is listening to each other, as we're doing here, that we're all together in this, but we're not in one room with 30 people. We're in the room that's as big as the planet, with, at the moment, I guess, 20,000 people or more. So this is a learning curve for all of us. Nobody knows how to deal with this. And it is terrifying, but that's not a sufficient reason for us to lose it when our minds, when we most need to seize hold of what's deepest and best in ourselves. And so I think the culture is changing, and nobody anticipated that this was going to happen, and that American industry would shut down, and everything else that's going on, and people dying like crazy. And of course, I'm sure there are people on from Italy and people on from South Korea. I mean, we have colleagues around the world. The level of suffering is gigantic. But it's also a learning curve for us about what to not pay attention to, because it's the stuff we don't pay attention to that winds up coming around and whacking us. And we need to really trust that the truth matters, for instance. That's up for grabs in the United States at this particular moment. That scientific evidence, when it's validated, matters, as opposed to opinions about how nice it would be if. And this is the nature of the human mind, that it always wants to, in some sense, optimize its own well-being, and often it's at the expense of the truth and everybody else. And we can no longer live in these kinds of illusions. And so even if this had not happened, the fact that we're all together in this space, meditating, this is what the planet needs to deal with global warming. We need the entire species to work its way, or live our way, into the name we gave ourselves as a species, Homo sapiens sapiens, which means, from the Latin sapere, which means to taste. We're the species that is aware and knows that it's aware. From, like, when you taste something, you get it, you know it instantly. It's not thought-based. You want to know what a banana is about? You don't read the encyclopedia of bananas. You bite into the banana, you know something. Deep knowing, non-conceptual, more than conceptual knowing. So we need to learn how to reclaim, or live our way into, Homo sapiens sapiens worldwide on this planet. And those who are most disadvantaged, those who are not privileged, those who maybe don't have a roof over their head, those who are refugees, taking refuge. Well, now you know everybody on the planet's a refugee. We're all taking refuge. And if those of us have a place to take refuge, part of the refuge is in here, is a refuge in our own heart, in stillness, in wakefulness, in clarity, in love, and in a deep, 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 beyond everything else, recognition of our interconnectedness. So if let's say the heart decided it didn't like the way the liver looked, those liver cells, they're like really the wrong color, and who knows what they do down there. But the heart, we're really important because we do the pumping of the blood. So if the heart and the liver in your body go to war, is that a good situation? No. The blood supply needs to go everywhere in the body, every single one of those trillions of cells, half of which aren't even human. They're the microbiome. The blood supply needs to be equally distributed everywhere. So in the body politic, if we don't solve the problems of homelessness, of refugees, of poverty, of violence, it's like we're shutting off the blood supply to people who most need attention, care, health, well-being, and that is a disease that in itself can lead to disease, pandemics, whether they're pandemics of the mind or pandemics of the body. And so in a certain way, this virus is a major wake-up call, a major wake-up call to the entire human species. And that would mean, say that, hey, in a certain way, we're all in a very big MBSR classroom, and it's not lasting 8 weeks. It will last as long as we do, and maybe even be transmitted to future generations. And I love that we're, making the best of a situation none of us ever wanted to be in, as best we can, and taking care of those who are, in some sense at highest risk of being ignored or left out of any kind of solution that's going to emerge to bring this virus under control and move forward from here in a way that emphasizes the well-being of all of us.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Bob. So I think we're going to have, I don't know if there are people from Italy or South Korea, as John mentioned, but please.
Yeah, let's
please
invite them if there is
comment.
anybody from Italy.
We can pick you. I think next up is Lexi Rose. Let's see.
Hi there. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm
just
waiting to see
we'll get
you.
your video. John, can we
Oh.
get the video up? It just we can highlight you just in a moment here.
Oh, okay.
That way John can see you, because otherwise you're just a voice.
Oh. Can you see me? It's a bit dark.
Yeah. Oh, here, let me, all right. I think we can see you now, Lexi. Welcome. Where are you from?
Oh yes, hi, how are you?
Hi, John. I'm good. I'm a psychologist based in London. And I think my question kind of flows quite nicely from the last couple of questions. I think so far I'm really struck by the breadth of the impact that the virus is having in people's lives, whether it's to do with their health or loved ones or their financial situation. And I think one thing that really struck me from the practice just now is when you talked about doing comes out of the being, and it comes from a place of wisdom. And I think that really connected with me, because now I feel this just intense busyness that people who already needed help need more help. Yeah. And there's a real kind of in amongst all the uncertainty, there's a lot of chaos about what to do. Yeah. How is best to help these people. And so I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that, and kind of wise action and compassionate action, and what do we do?
Well, there's no one answer to that, of course. I mean, that's why I do the work that I do, because I trust that if you listen deeply to yourself, you'll know what to do. in some very profound way, you will know, and you don't have to solve the problem. All you have to do is one thing that strikes you as helpful, and do it selflessly. Not to think of yourself as a great savior, but just selflessly helping somebody else, or just taking care of your child, or taking care of somebody who's, you know, sick or alone, or whatever it is, that to just use your imagination and creativity. This is part of mindfulness, is to trust that, as I said about the questions and the answers lying right next to the questions, the potential for what is called for now is not going to come out of reading the newspaper or watching one more television news broadcast, okay, which will just make us more and more angry and more terrified. But to actually listen deeply in here, and then do that one thing for now, just for now. And then maybe tomorrow there'll be some other one thing that you can do. Meanwhile, you take care of yourself, because you know, the people on the front lines are at very, very high risk for burnout. And they need support in any way possible. I know that medical students are actually moving in, even though they haven't graduated from medical school yet, to help the people who are in the various, you know, intensive care units. And so maybe we can help them or help somebody. And this is all happening spontaneously. And it's part of the beauty of our species, is that, you know, we really do lead with love. And when the full catastrophe of the human condition becomes as evident as it is becoming now, then as the cells of the one body of the planet, every single one of us has all of the intelligences we need to act in ways that have integrity. And if we don't, we'll learn the lesson, because the world will slap back at us. And then we'll say, oh, that's not the way. And then we'll find some other more imaginative way to do it. Thank you for that question, Lexi. Beautiful. And good luck over there in the UK. You know, a lot of this has to do with timing. So the different countries are at different places in the timing. And so in the States, different cities and different states are in different, because you can see and plot how much we're waking up, you know, and New York has been forced to wake up in a way, in California, in a way that other states, they're not really awake yet, and they're still clinging to, no, we don't want to disrupt business or whatever. But like, the virus could care less about Democrats, Republicans, you know, wealth or poverty or anything else. A virus is an equal opportunity destroyer. And you can sort of pretend, oh, some people, you know, if you're really healthy, it's just like a common cold or something like that. That doesn't seem to be the case either. There are young people, and, you know, that are dying, and there are, you know, not just doctors, but lots of the doctors and nurses and healthcare people, their lives are really on the line, and it is terrifying. They need our love, they need our support. And so does everybody else that's out there delivering food, caring for people, visiting them, and so forth. This is how the blood supply of humanity really gets broadly distributed. And there are deep lessons to learn from it. And every single one of us has profound creative contributions to make to this. So it's not like, oh, just ask the experts. The experts don't know any more than we do. There are no experts. They're only humans. And we all are geniuses, so to speak. We relate to people who come into our clinic in the hospital, the MBSR clinics around the world. We see people who come in to our clinic, no matter what kind of illness or disease they have, as miraculous beings, as geniuses. Oh, another miraculous being has appeared. And when we treat each other that way, then that's taking care of the real challenges that we're facing as a species and as countries and as communities. And I just want to give a shout out to Italy, you know, for like, you know, I've been reading what's been coming out of there. We have many MBSR teachers in Italy, deep, close friends of mine. And this is true in all of the countries of Europe and of Asia. And just a deep expression of both grief and love, for the agony and the beauty of people singing from the balconies to each other because we're locked in our homes, but still singing. Like, you know, it's a way to actually support our humanity when we feel most isolated, most challenged, and most afraid.
Thanks, Lexi.
Thank you.
So it's about, we have 13 minutes left on, so we have probably time for one or two.
Yeah, and then I want to do a final sort of guided meditation to glide us out of here, if that's all right.
Perfect.
Maybe
So,
Soren, you'd also like to say something or other?
Well, we're going to be doing we'll send you a notification. We'll send everybody the videotape of this so you can watch it entirety. And we'll also send links for next week's sessions, which I think Jon is leaning to every day, but we can confirm that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying, you know.
For a week anyways.
Oh, wave your hands if you think it would be nice to meditate every day together like this for a shorter period of time. Just wave your hands. I can't see anybody, so. And I don't have a lot of faces on my screen, but I have my face on my screen right now.
So there's various people in the chat room saying they're from Italy. The first person I see with their hand wave is Juan. So maybe Juan, do you want to?
Okay. Put him up.
Let's see.
Oh, you're Juan.
Juan.
You're from Italy?
No, I'm from Colombia.
Okay.
I'm a clinical psychologist, and I work a lot with your protocols. So I really appreciate the time with you doing this meditation, Dr. Jon. And thank you to everyone that are online. I really want to know if you could tell us about some examples of active meditation to do in our homes. And if you could tell us something, I really appreciate it.
What do you mean by active meditation?
For example, a meditation that you can do at the same time with other activities, for example, exercise or watching.
Okay. Well, there are a few things that I had in mind that I should mention, but because you're asking this question, I'll try to link them into it. One of which is that, as I started out saying, everything is the meditation. So if you are exercising, why not do it mindfully? Okay? If you happen to have exercise equipment, but the most powerful way to work with that, it would be mindful hatha yoga. Get down on the floor and start moving your body in various ways and let your body teach you what you need to know. And if you happen to have exercise equipment, or you're just kind of whatever it is you're doing, jumping rope, you can do that with full awareness, and then it becomes a meditation practice. Cooking is a fantastic meditation practice. Getting dressed in the morning, not you know, sort of mechanically, but with awareness. There's nothing that's not saying good morning to your children, if you have children, or your parents, or FaceTiming, or whatever it is that we're doing to stay connected with all our social isolation. All those are meditative practices. All those can be mindfulness practices. All it takes is for you to show up. The one thing I did want to suggest that I'm going to weave into your response is that I'm assuming that whether we're sleeping badly or not, we're all sleeping every night to some degree or other, okay? And I want to make the suggestion that when you wake up in the morning, before you jump out of bed and go for your phone and start reading the news or turn on the TV, try lying in bed in what in the yoga tradition they call the corpse pose, on your back with your feet falling away from each other and your hands open towards the ceiling. And you can lie under the covers and just finish the job of waking up. See if you can bring your awareness to the body as a whole, lying in bed, breathing in the morning, and you'll wake up more than if you just wake up and jump out of bed, which is really not waking up at all, but just going on automatic pilot immediately. And then turn as much of your day into a meditation retreat as possible, so that if you need to talk with people, you design certain times to do that. If you need to read the newspaper or catch up with the news on television or whatever, or to do whatever you're doing, make a schedule if you can, so that there's some degree of repetition, because we're in such a position of uncertainty and things are changing so fast every day. And if we're confined at home, doing this out of compassion for other people, because we don't know who has the virus and who does not. And in the United States, we don't have any tests. I mean, we're like, you know, in some sense, embarrassingly ill-equipped for this kind of thing, supposedly a great technological nation, and we're like way behind for various reasons. So we can use every aspect of our lives as a mindfulness practice, even going to the bathroom, taking care of the house, cleaning, whatever it is, connecting with people on FaceTime, you know, hugging the people that you're living with and loving them. This moment of now. It will never be repeated. Even if there was no pandemic, that would be the most important thing to do. But when we go on autopilot and we're so busy trying to get someplace else, to work or to accomplish this or that, we often forget who's doing all the doing. And so cultivating being in this way it's not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity for living life with integrity. And as I was suggesting, there's a lot more to say about it. It also is a profound optimizer of health and well-being. Resilience, capacity to actually be resilient biologically and psychologically and socially in the face of the unknown and a huge number of threats. So Soren, I guess we'll leave the questions at that. It's a very small fraction of the 21,000 people. But as I suggested, answer your own questions, folks, because that's the meditation practice too. Not by trying to think through answers, but by actually resting in not knowing and deep, 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 deep listening to where the question itself is coming from. So in the remaining moments that we have, which by my clock seems to be about 6 minutes.
And I have a few short things at the very end, John. So do you want me to say those now, or do you want to lead with the meditation and just?
Why don't you say them now, and then I'll close with the meditation.
So John will be doing sessions next week. Please look for an email with the link for those sessions. They'll either be possibly every day. So if you did not have your question answered today, maybe you'll get it later this week. And thank you for coming, and a big thank you to John, and look forward to seeing you here again.
And a deep thank you to you, Soren, for hosting this whole thing, and to the other John for being behind the scenes and taking care of all this technological wizardry, for which I am eternally grateful, John.
John Bashu.
John, thank you.
John Bashu. So in the remaining moments that we have, let's actually first remember that our being here together, our having been here together, doesn't stop when we sign off. That we're going to carry each other in our hearts just by virtue of having connected in this way. I, for one, feel deeply, deeply touched that you have all shown up for this. It was a real choice. It's those of you who have stayed, it's 90 minutes of your life. That thousands of people are drawn to do this is really a statement of how healthy we are as a species. And that health is going to only grow. We are going to get past this virus. We're going to grieve whatever needs grieving. And hopefully we're going to learn the deep lessons of this. Because this virus, you know, may just be the precursor for something else to come that we don't know about, but that would be even more scary. And so we really need to find and lead with our own profound human integrity. And the beauty of it is we already have it. We don't need to find it. We just need to embody it for each other. And the practice helps to remind us and rebody us in ways that allow us to turn life itself into mindfulness practice, life itself into heartfulness practice, into compassion cultivation, and into a recognition that of our deep, deep, deep interconnectedness. So in the remaining moments of this time together today, let's drop in to silence. Once again, reestablishing ourselves, if you're still online, with a sense of the body as a whole, sitting here breathing. And seeing if you can give yourself over to inhabiting this boundless spaciousness of your own heart. Whole in and of yourself, and part of much, much, much larger circles of wholeness because of this profound interconnectedness. And the world needs you. The world needs every single one of us. The world needs all its flowers, and it needs a flowering of what's deepest and best in all of us. And that is catalyzed probably best by exercising the muscle of mindfulness, whether you're a first responder, whether you're on the front lines, whether you're supporting people who are on the front lines, whether you're a grandparent, whether you're a parent, whether you're a partner or a spouse, whether you have work that you can do from home, whether you've lost your job already. If you're here in this circle of deep connectivity right now, then you belong and you are welcome. And allow yourself to experience that in this moment you are already whole, already complete, as you are, with things exactly as they are. And that we can go forward from here moment by moment, not knowing what's to come, but at least grounded in intimacy with this not knowing, and recognizing that it's trustworthy and that we can bring deep balance of mind and heart and body into this moment. Because that's what life offers us. That's what our own biology is offering us in this very moment. We're already whole. We're already complete. There is no place to go other than to be here. There is nothing to do other than what you need to do now. And there is no special something that you need to attain to be a good person or a better person or a better meditator. You're already as good as it gets. Let's just recognize it and allow it to be as it is and learn from that allowing. And so whether we're speaking or whether we're in silence, the meditation practice goes on, just the way the heartbeat goes on in every single one of us. And in a very profound way, I feel like our hearts are beating together. May your life continue to unfold with wisdom and gratitude, clarity, presence of mind and heart. Staying with the domain of being while you need to be socially separate or isolated or quarantined or on lockdown, and not missing the beauty and the wholeness, no matter what is unfolding in the present moment. Awareness is big enough to hold it and big enough to embrace it in ways that optimize our potential to do what needs to be doing, do what needs to be done when the mind and the heart and the world are in deep alignment. So a profound thank you for attending, for showing up for this invitation. And I'll look forward to metaphorically, if not literally, seeing you as we continue to practice together and turn the world into an MBSR classroom and a mindfulness adventure and bring to bear all of our forms of human intelligence in this moment of global crisis that will pass, and we're collaborating and helping it to pass by learning how to turn our lives at home, however chaotic they may be and disruptive, into this global meditation retreat. See you on Monday.